In 2021, a phrase swept through offices around the world: quiet quitting. It didn't mean handing in your resignation. It didn't mean walking out the door. It meant something far more methodical: showing up, clocking in, completing the minimum requirements, and not a single thing more. No extra hours, no emotional investment, no volunteering for the project nobody else wanted. Just enough performance to keep the paycheck arriving and not enough to get noticed either way. Economists measured it. HR departments restructured entire management philosophies around it. Productivity consultants charged thousands of dollars per hour to explain what it was and how to stop it. And then, slowly, the conversation moved on. But something else had been happening alongside it. Something quieter, and something that played out not in open-plan offices or video calls, but behind the closed doors of family homes across the country. Something that still doesn't have a widely recognized name and barely a single mainstream headline to its credit. You could call it quiet quitting your marriage. Sociologists are starting to call it the husband strike. Unlike its workplace counterpart, it's not trending. There's no hashtag, no viral think piece, no carefully produced documentary following it into people's living rooms. Just millions of men, still married, still present, still performing the basic logistics of family life, who have quietly, systematically, and often without even realizing it, stopped trying. And it's happening inside millions of marriages right now. On paper, nothing has changed. He still pays the mortgage. He still shows up to school concerts and parent-teacher interviews and Saturday afternoon sports. He attends the family dinners, takes out the bins, and answers the texts. By every legal and logistical definition, he's still a husband. But ask him when he last felt genuinely needed, not functional, not useful, not just another item managed by the household system, but actually needed. And the answer will tell you everything the data cannot. What researchers and family therapists have been quietly documenting over the past decade is a specific pattern of marital withdrawal. A husband who stops initiating conversations that go anywhere, who stops suggesting the dinner out he used to plan, who sits next to his wife on the same couch every evening and feels, in some way he can't quite put into words, like a stranger sharing a waiting room with someone he used to know. He's not plotting an exit. He's not in the middle of an affair. He's not angry in any way he could point to directly. He's simply gone, still physically present, but emotionally, relationally, motivationally absent. What psychologist John Gottman calls stonewalling, the withdrawal of presence and responsiveness as a self-protective response, turns out to be one of the most reliable predictors of marital breakdown. Gottman's research across decades of observational studies found that 85% of stonewallers in heterosexual relationships are men. His framework, which identifies stonewalling as one of the 4 horsemen of relationship failure, alongside criticism, contempt, and defensiveness, maps almost exactly onto what the husband strike looks like from the inside. And this withdrawal rarely arrives suddenly. It accumulates through what therapists call the demand withdrawal cycle, the compounding weight of small daily dismissals, the interrupted sentence, the redirected suggestion, the effort that goes unacknowledged, the initiative that gets corrected rather than appreciated. Each one invisible on its own, but together, over months and years, enough to convince a man that the energy required to keep reaching across the gap is no longer worth spending. Researchers from the Gottman Institute and family therapists across the country, drawing on attachment theory, the framework describing how early relational patterns shape our capacity to stay emotionally connected under stress, are documenting the same pattern. When the attachment bond feels repeatedly unsafe or unreciprocated, the withdrawal is not chosen, it is automatic. What distinguishes the husband strike from a marriage that's simply falling apart is this: both partners often sense something is wrong, but neither can name exactly what it is, or when it began, or who is responsible for it. To understand why this is happening at scale, across demographics, across income levels, across cultures, you have to go back further than social media. Further than any single cultural turning point, you have to go back to the deal. For most of the 20th century, the terms of a Western marriage were understood by both sides. The husband provided financially, the wife managed the home and the children. It was inequitable by modern standards and often profoundly unfair to women. But it was legible. Both sides knew their role, and both sides knew what success looked like. Then the rules changed, and they should have changed. The expansion of women into the workforce, into leadership, into financial independence, into professional and political life was a necessary correction to a system that had treated women as secondary citizens for generations. But here's what didn't change alongside it: the cultural expectations placed on men inside marriage. Women entered the workforce in transformational numbers, and men did not, in comparable numbers, enter the home. Study after study through the 1990s and 2000s found the same pattern. Even in households where both partners worked full-time, women were still carrying the majority of domestic and emotional labor. The cooking, what's now called the mental load, the appointments, the schedules, the invisible cognitive work of tracking every moving piece of family life, remained almost entirely on her side of the ledger. Meanwhile, the expectations on husbands quietly expanded rather than redistributed. Be the provider in a housing market that hasn't responded to a single income in 30 years. Be emotionally present and communicative without having been given the cultural tools to do that. Share equally in the domestic load, while still being the implicit financial backstop if everything else falls apart. The contract had been rewritten on one side, and the expectations on the other had simply multiplied. And when the distance between what's expected and what feels possible grows wide enough, without ceremony, without announcement, and without even a conscious decision, men stop trying to close it. There are no clean statistics for the husband strike. It does not appear in divorce filings, it does not show up in census data, and men are not reporting it to their doctors or their therapists, because most of them cannot quite name what they would be reporting. What they are doing is sitting in their cars in the driveway for 15 minutes before going inside, answering questions about their day with single syllables, going to bed earlier and earlier to avoid the conversations they no longer have the energy to navigate. What the data does capture is the downstream evidence. According to Pew Research Center, marriage rates across the Western world have been falling for 4 consecutive decades. The average age of first marriage has climbed in every demographic category. Among men under 35, rates of reported marital satisfaction have declined faster than among women in the same cohort. Sociologist Brad Wilcox and researchers at the Institute for Family Studies have tracked this same deterioration in male marital engagement across income levels and cultural backgrounds. And when couples do eventually divorce, surveys consistently find that men are more likely to report they did not see it coming, not because they were unaware something had gone wrong, but because by the time the formal ending arrived, they had already quietly left. The husband strike is not a movement. There is no manifesto, no organized resistance, no coordinating forum. There is only a distributed pattern of withdrawal, playing out in silence across family homes, invisible from the outside, and often invisible even to the men living through it. And here's what makes it worth examining closely. This isn't a story about men who never wanted to be good husbands. The men inside this pattern got married because they meant it. Most of them still want their marriages to work. Most of them aren't planning an exit. They simply have no framework for what they're experiencing, no language for what they've been slowly losing, and no cultural map for the terrain they now find themselves in. A society that spent decades rewriting the terms of modern marriage without simultaneously building the tools for men to navigate those changes produced something entirely predictable. A generation of husbands who are still showing up, still functional, still performing the role, and quietly, slowly, running out of reasons to do anything more than that. The husband strike isn't a conclusion, it's a symptom. And like every symptom, its value lies not in the discomfort it creates, but in what it tells us about what is broken beneath the surface. The question worth asking now is a simple one. Is anyone paying attention?